Hello, and welcome to the Off-Campus Release Orientation Program. This is designed for students who are unable to make it to our official orientation in February, or as a refresher for those that have already attended orientation. There are a few learning outcomes that we would like for you to gather during your time with us today. First, we want you to understand what it means to be a commuter. We also want you to know the expectations that the university has for you, as well as the town. We also want to make sure you're aware of services offered by Residential and Commuter Life, the RCL Advisory Board, and Longwood University. We'll also have a section where we'll have you become familiar with lease signing and your rights as a tenant and the rights of landlords. We also want to talk a little bit about how we, RCL, can help you handle any problems or concerns you might have with your landlord. And finally, we want to make sure you become familiar with the town of Farmville and their services they provide. So, what does it mean to be a commuter? First and foremost, you'll have increased responsibilities. At this point in time, when you become a commuter and live with a private landlord, you'll be responsible for rent, utilities, potentially cutting the grass, and making sure that everything in your apartment or the place you're renting is working appropriately, and if not, you'll have to contact your landlord. You're also going to have to make sure you're responsible for budgeting and money, and you're going to have different issues than you have being a residential student. Last but not least, we also noticed that with our commuting students, they tend to have to work a little bit more to stay involved and connected on campus. So let's first start by talking about the services offered by RCL and the RCL Advisory Board. First, we have a commuter lounge located in the Langford Student Union, room 211. In the commuter lounge, we have 2 computers, as well as various wireless setups, and plenty of other plugs and network jacks for your use. We also have a full kitchen. That kitchen includes things such as a refrigerator, a microwave, and a stove. You also have free lockers in the commuter lounge, which you can use to store books. You can use it to store snacks, your jacket, whatever you might need during your time as a commuter. We also offer some emergency vehicle assistance. If you end up having a flat tire, or if you end up needing to have your battery jumped, we have some various resources for you in our office. Of course, with situations like that, we also recommend that you contact campus police first. The other piece that we offer through Residential and Commuter Life is assistance with landlord issues. There are multiple staff members in Residential and Commuter Life that are willing and able to help you with any issues you might have with your landlord. You're welcome to call the office at 434-395-2080 and state that you're a commuter student and that you have some issues, and we'll be willing to help you out. As you can see listed below, the off-campus team includes myself, Jen Cox, the Associate Director for Off-Campus Living, and 3 RECs who work with our apartment communities that also work with our commuter students. For this year, they're Eric Randolph, Rob Gutierrez, and Pachia Zhang. We also have an opportunity to keep our commuter students connected each week through our weekly newsletter called the Wednesday Wire. In this newsletter, you'll find different activities going on around campus, potentially some updates regarding possible leases and places to rent, and any information that we think is important for commuter students to know. It's also important to know that every REC and Jen spends time in our commuter lounge office each week as an opportunity to get to know our commuters better. We encourage you to stop by our commuter lounge and utilize the space. We have quite a few students in there that are in there all the time. There's really comfortable couches, TV, of course computers as we mentioned, the kitchen as we mentioned, and it's a nice space for those that might be commuting a bit further. Let's talk specifically about the RCL Advisory Board. The RCL Advisory Board provides services and programs for our commuter students. One goal of the Advisory Board is to represent the needs of both our residential students as well as our commuter student needs throughout the year and through their work with SGA. Some examples of things that you'll be invited to now that you'll be a commuting student include the Thanksgiving luncheon. This annual tradition occurs about a week and a half before Thanksgiving break starts, and it's a nice luncheon with all the typical dressings, turkey, stuffing, and it's just a nice opportunity for all of our commuter students to come together for a nice free lunch. We also do different activities each month called Commuter Connections. You might see us in the commuter lounge doing a spaghetti dinner. You might see a Valentine maybe stuck to your car on your windshield as a way to say thank you with maybe a piece of candy. You also might see us just providing desserts and snacks. It's just another opportunity for us to make sure we're interacting with our commuters and we know your needs. The other piece that you'll see right when you come back in August is the welcome wagon. For the first 2 days of class in the morning, we'll have coffee and hot tea available, as well as little goodie bags to welcome you to the start of another year. These are just some of the many events that our field advisory does throughout the year, and we'd love to have you join our field advisory board to learn a little bit more and to maybe get involved and provide us additional insight on what commuter student needs are. If you're interested in joining advisory board, we encourage you to contact Greg Miller at the email noted on the screen, or you're welcome to contact the RCL office and we can get you in touch with the right person. So, one of the biggest things that we understand when students move off campus is that we need to make sure everyone knows how to be a good neighbor. For most of our students, they're good neighbors to everyone around them, and we really thank you for that. A couple of tips we have for you include demonstrating an interest in your neighbors, being friendly and approachable with them, trying to maintain open communication with your neighbors. Wave hello when you see them. Talk to them about how things are going. If you have any issues with your house or your property, make sure you're keeping it clean and upkept. That way all of your neighbors know that you do want to be the best neighbor you can be. Please be considerate and make sure you're watching your noise levels during any type of parties or get-togethers. And also make sure you're taking responsibility for your guests. Responsibility for your guests includes their actions. It includes maybe how they're parking or where they're parking when they come over. It also just includes their general interactions they might have with others that live around you. For those of you that are planning to have pets once you move off campus, please make sure that you're taking care of your pet and that you're picking up appropriately, and that hopefully your pet isn't off in another neighbor's yard. And as we kind of touched on already, as far as parking goes, please make sure you and your guests park in the designated spots, face the correct way, just again to make sure that you're being the best neighbor you can be. All right. For our off-campus release orientation, we had the good luck of having Pamela Fortune from Virginia Legal Aid talk a little bit about lease signing and what you need to know. Please note that we do have copies of rights and responsibilities from Virginia Legal Aid Society available in our commuter lounge office. And if you run into any issues or concerns, you're always welcome to call Virginia Legal Aid or, again, talk to Residential and Commuter Life Office and ask to speak to Jen Cox directly. So first, let's talk about your legal rights and responsibilities. You are encouraged before you sign any lease to make sure you ask a lot of questions. We do expect that all of our students are reading through the lease, reading through every word, and they have a really good understanding of what they're getting into. The other piece that we want every student to pay attention to is the Virginia Residential Landlord Tenant Act, or the VRLTA. The Virginia Residential Landlord Tenant Act is something that we encourage all students to ensure is included in their lease. This Landlord Tenant Act helps ensure all the rights and responsibilities of both tenants and landlords. As far as tenant responsibilities go, it's important to know that you are responsible for paying rent each month and abiding by the lease terms. You do have a duty to maintain the basics of your premises. Now, this is going to depend on where you live. For those of you living in an apartment setting, that means that you're paying attention to the basics of your apartment, and if you have a pipe start to leak, that you're calling in maintenance to fix that. For those of you that might live in a neighborhood setting where maybe there's grass that needs to be cut, that you're following up with that as well. And again, it is a tenant's responsibility, as we already mentioned, that you are responsible for the conduct of all of your guests. We also do encourage all of our students to look at getting renter's insurance. Generally, when you live on campus, if your family has a homeowner's policy, normally your contents are covered while you're away at school. However, when you move off campus with a private landlord, there are many times that your insurance is not covered. So we do encourage you to speak with your family, see if you have any insurance coverage through your family's homeowner's insurance, and if not, purchase renter's insurance. Typically, renter's insurance is very inexpensive, about $100 a year. A few other things that we need you to know about your rights and responsibilities. Repairs. It is the landlord's responsibility to ensure that the conditions you're living in are fit and habitable, and it is their responsibility to maintain the utilities and appliances. If you run into an issue where you're noticing that repairs are not being done in a timely manner, please note there is a 21-30-day notice related to repairs, and you can always learn more about that from Virginia Legal Aid Society. In the event of a major repair that has to take place in your house, the landlord is responsible for supplying substitute housing. This means that, for example, if you were to have an essential service such as water, and you no longer have water and it's going to take a while for water to come back to your apartment, the landlord is responsible for providing you another place to live, even if that includes them paying for a space in a hotel room for a while. As far as eviction goes, please note that there's a lot of different aspects of this, and you are encouraged to work with your landlord and potentially with a lawyer or Virginia Legal Aid. However, if you would like to terminate your lease, generally there's a time frame between 30 and 90 days, and normally your landlords will start to ask you in the springtime if you're planning on renewing your lease or if you're going to terminate your lease at the end of the time period. Please note that the landlord cannot cut off any utilities, they can't lock you out, and they can't hold on to your possessions in the event that you haven't paid rent, that is not considered something that's legal. At the bottom of our screen here, you'll see that there's a topic about security deposits. Please note that for the Commonwealth of Virginia, the maximum security deposit is 2 months' rent. That is a maximum. Again, in our area, we'll typically see about a 1-month rent deposit. Please note that all security deposits must be returned within 45 days per the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that excludes any damages that result that the landlord might charge you for. That generally is taken out of the security deposit. We do encourage our students to do walkthrough inspections with their landlord, both as they're moving in to note any additional damages and as they're moving out. For our students that have lived on campus with us, we consider this similar to the RCR that you sign at the beginning of the year. We want you to go through and be very thorough with the landlord and make notes of any concerns that you have so that you're not charged on the back end. A few more things to talk about before you sign a lease. Make sure you meet your landlord in person. Again, go through the property and write down everything. If there are concerns that you have prior to moving in, have the landlord commit to repairing those problems prior to your move-in. For those of you that might be living in a neighborhood setting, take a look at the parking allocations with the landlord and make sure there's no special parking pass or stickers that you're going to need. Or if you do need those, make sure you know what time frame you're going to get those parking stickers. And again, make sure you read the lease entirely, and we do encourage you to review that with your parents and or an attorney, just so that you're as familiar as possible. Some important information regarding Virginia Legal Aid. You'll see at the top of the screen here is our statewide toll-free number. The Virginia Legal Aid Society number is also listed. Virginia Legal Aid Society is located just off of High Street. If you have problems with your landlord, first and foremost, we recommend that you read and reread your lease. We also want you to document all of your concerns. We do encourage you to communicate with your landlord verbally and in writing. Writing could include an email where you can have things date and time stamped. It could also include certified letters. If you have any additional concerns with your landlord, again, you're always encouraged to contact the Residential and Commuter Life Office and ask to speak to Jen Cox, and she'd be happy to schedule an appointment with you to work through possible options. Finally, depending upon the situation, it might be necessary to contact Town of Farmville officials. And again, Jen Cox and the rest of the RCL office can help you with that. For those other concerns that you might have, again, the information for Jen is listed below. The next phase, for those that missed our off-campus release orientation, was from the Longwood University Police Department and the Farmville Police Department. So Chief Beach, the chief of the Longwood Police Department, and Chief Mooney, chief of the Farmville Police Department, gave a basic presentation, and we'll just go through the highlights of it. First and foremost is that Longwood and the town of Farmville have a working relationship. So we will be notified in the event that something happens off campus. That information will be sent to Longwood. So there is potential that, if there were to be a situation, whether it's just us following up with you to ensure you're okay, or if potentially there was an arrest or another type of situation, again, Longwood will follow up with you as well as the town. Please note that for both Longwood and the town of Farmville, first and foremost, their goal is crime prevention. They also do a lot of community policing, where you'll see police officers out and around talking to folks. And of course, when need be, they'll do criminal investigations. If you have any specific questions related to parking, you can contact Ms. Laura Rice in the parking office at the number noted below. Doug Mooney, the chief of the Farmville Police, also wanted to make mention that, again, the town of Farmville and police department are here to work and help with our students. I think what's most important to note is that a lot of our students seem to not want to call our campus police, maybe if they're having a gathering at their apartment or at their house off campus. But if things get out of hand, first and foremost, we do encourage you to contact the police. That way they can come and assist you in any way possible. Please note that depending upon the situation, since you will be a member or will be living most likely in the town of Farmville police are most likely to respond. However, depending on the situation, it might be Longwood police officers that respond. We do encourage you, if there's anything happening that might end up becoming a bigger event, that you do contact campus police and they'll do everything to work with you. They are here to enforce the law, but again, they want to do anything they can to help. A few things that they also wanted to note is, again, in previous years we have had concerns from the police officers regarding parking. Again, that's mostly for our students that are living more in a community atmosphere. Also respecting your neighbors and respecting each other. Please make sure that, again, you're doing everything you can to be a good neighbor. We also do want all of our Longwood students to be aware that, it's everyone's responsibility for the security and safety of our town. So please make sure if you notice anything suspicious that you're calling the police officers and that you're aware of your surroundings at all times. All right, turning over to student conduct and integrity. Ms. Stephanie Rowland is the Director of Student Conduct and Integrity, and she has a few things that she'd like you to know. First and foremost, please note that if you do violate any type of law or policy, you will be held accountable. The town will determine if your behavior is acceptable in the community at large. Longwood determines if your behavior is acceptable in the Longwood community. So what that means is, for those that might end up having an encounter off campus and potentially arrest or something like that, there will be a town process. There will also be a Longwood process. And that is not double jeopardy. One is an educational body, the other is more of a punitive body. But again, the goal is that Farmville is holding you responsible for the community at large, and Longwood is holding you responsible within the Longwood community. As we move forward, we have an opportunity to talk with some of our Farmville town officials. We have Mr. Jerry Spates, who's the town manager, Ms. Kim Thompson, who's a property inspector, and Mr. Philip Moore, who's the building inspector. As far as Jerry Spates is the town manager, please note that his goal is to provide town services and make sure that all the expectations of all the residents of the town are being met. He, of course, looks at residential parking. He'll look at town ordinances. He'll work with leases. You'll also see that he'll be at town council every month. If you have any questions or concerns about being a resident of the town at large, you're always welcome to work with Mr. Spates. Ms. Kim Thompson is the property inspector. So something that generally falls in her range relates to those that, again, are living more in a community setting versus an apartment setting. So this includes kind of the party cleanup and trash and recycling. A few important things to note for those of you that live in a community setting. Please note that trash pickup is 1 day per week. It's either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Please work with your landlord so that you're aware of what day your trash is taken out. Please note that there should be a green rollout trash can that's provided by your landlord. If you don't have one, work with your landlord and they can work to make sure you get a green rollout can and can work to tell you what day is your pickup day for trash. Please note that for those of you living in an apartment setting, you'll probably run into Ms. Kim Thompson less often. However, you might be over at friends' houses in a community setting, so it's important to know who she is. Please note that there are a few other important things to know for those living in a community setting. Kim Thompson is responsible for all of the code enforcement. So first and foremost is any type of unkept property, such as overgrown grass. So again, for those of you living in a community setting, please make sure you're working with your landlord and maybe with the rest of your roommates to determine who is responsible for cutting grass and making sure you're abiding by the town ordinance with it so that it's not overgrown. Next, you'll see this party picture here. Please make sure for those living in a community setting that all of your trash is picked up and cleaned up and that we don't have anything in the yard. This tends to be the thing that most often Kim Thompson gets calls about, relates to trash in the yard. You'll also see trash piled up here at the corner. Only trash that fits in the green rollout can, which is to this picture on your left here, is what is taken. There are 2 times a year that are town cleanup days when larger items are taken. And once you become a commuter student, we will make sure to note those town cleanup days in the weekly Wednesday wire. Alright, another important thing to note is any type of appliances or household furniture sitting on the porch are not allowed. So any inside furniture needs to be inside. If it's meant to be outside, then it should be outside. A few other pieces for our community residents. Please make sure that the garbage is bagged before being rolled out. Everything must fit inside that container, as we mentioned. Please make sure your container is on the curb by 7 a.m. on the day of collection, and it needs to be put back and rolled back to your house before midnight that same day. Please do not leave the containers on the curb. They do need to be moved at all times. If you have any questions for Kim as you move in, especially for those living in our community settings, please feel free to go to the Town of Farmville website, farmvilleva.com, and you can click on Public Works, or you can contact Kim Thompson at the number noted below. Finally, for the Town of Farmville, we have Philip Moore, who's the building inspector. He wants to spend a little bit of time talking about what to look for in building structures and who to contact with building concerns. As you will see, as the building instructor, he has quite a few things that he is looking at and that every student is encouraged to look at before they sign a lease. First and foremost, exterior appearances and the walking surface. Are the surfaces walking up to your apartment or to your house that you're renting? Are they level? Are they even? The front door should be adequate. It should shut and have a lock. All the windows in the apartment or house that you're renting should open and close and have locks on them. You should pay special attention to the walls and to the ceilings to make sure that there's no serious leaks into the walls that you can see, or that there's any weak or rotten areas somewhere inside the building. For those that might have stairs, please pay attention to those inside of your space. Whether you live in an apartment or a community setting, you'll most likely have exterior stairs. Make sure you're paying attention to those stairs. Are they sturdy? Are you going to be able to move furniture in and out and feel safe as you're working with the stairs? You should also take a look at cabinets and other dark spaces. Check under the sink, in the bathroom, and check the kitchen cabinets as well to make sure there's no mold or mildew. For the bathrooms, we always encourage you to check that space as well, again for mold and mildew. You should also check every outlet or some of the outlets and make sure that they're working appropriately. When you look at your space that you're about to rent, please pay attention to your heating. If there are black or dark areas around the vent, that is a concern. So please make sure you note that and work with your landlord. If you run into any issues with this, and after you've worked with your landlord, if you still have concerns, you're always welcome to contact Mr. Philip Moore at the number located at the bottom right-hand side, and he'd be more than willing to work with you on how to work through remedying this so that everything is as safe as possible. At this point in time, we'd like to thank you for attending our off-campus release orientation, our online presentation. If you have any follow-up questions, again, please contact the Residential and Commuter Life Office. And finally, as you begin to move off campus, please note that it is a requirement that you update your address with the registrar's office. Any student moving from residential living on campus to living off campus with a private landlord must update their address as soon as possible. So as soon as you've signed your lease and as soon as you know your address, please make sure you go to the registrar's office and provide your updated address starting for next year for them, so that way they have everything on file. If you have any questions, you can go to the registrar's office and talk to them about how to update your address. We thank you so much for your time, and we hope you have a good rest of your year.